For my CBA assessments, I chose to do the written response as well as the math, and I was focusing on second grade. I'm currently working as a day camp director for the park district, so I was able to actually administer this test to a child named Dallas who will be going into the second grade. So for the written assessment, my probe was to have him write a short story about a vacation that he had taken with his family, and then to use at least 3 of the following sight words in the story, and then I listed 5 different sight words. Um, and so for this, the standard that I was focusing on was write narratives in which they recount a well elaborated event or short sequence of events, include details to describe actions, thoughts, and feelings, use temporal words to signal event order, and provide a sense of closure. So overall, I thought that the assessment was good, but not great. I definitely could have had more detailed instructions and given specific prompts for him to answer. He was pretty vague in his response, but he did use he used 3 of the 5 sight words and did write about a time that he went on vacation with his family to Disney. Um, so overall, I definitely need to give more specific guidelines. At the end, when I asked him about it, he started telling me in great detail about his trip to Disney, using a lot of different description words and talking about how he felt about things and how he wants to go back. And I asked him why he was able to be so descriptive when talking to me, but when writing, he was a little more vague. And he stated he just didn't really know how many sentences it needed to be and what exactly he needs to write about. So it really showed me that as a second grader, he definitely needs more guidelines, and using specific questions for him to answer definitely would have helped him out a ton. And also giving a limit about how many sentences it needs to be is also something that I need to do in the future. So in grading him, I gave him a 5 out of 5 because he did do exactly what the prompt said, even though my instructions weren't great, but I couldn't dock him for that because that was on me. And then for my second CBA, I did math again for second grade. So I gave this to the same camper. And here, the standard that I was focusing on was understand place value, count within 1,000, skip count by fives, tens, and 100s. So for the assessment, I was focusing on the skip counting element, and I gave him 5 different multiple choice questions. Um, one, 4 out of those were, sorry, 3 out of those were starting with a certain number and then counting up by fives, what are the next 4 numbers, counting up by tens, what are the next 4 numbers, and then counting up by 100s, what are the next 4 numbers. One of the questions gave a sequence of numbers and asked him to identify what the pattern rule was. So in this case, it was 92, 102, 112, so on. So they were counting up by tens. And then the last one was, again, 35, 45, 55. What are the next 3 numbers? So that one was multiple choice, where the other 3 were fill in the blank. So for this one, I thought that the instructions were definitely much more clear as opposed to my CBA for the written aspect. But as I explained in my summary, math was never one of my strong suits, and I always felt like the teachers were kind of trying to be tricky and confuse me. So I was really trying to make sure that I was being as transparent as possible when making this assessment, and try to use questions that I thought would have been very clear. However, when I asked Dallas about the assessment afterwards, he kind of said that he felt like some of the questions were tricking him. And so I definitely think that in the future, I could use more of a variety of questions. I kind of did a lot of multiple choice for this. So in the future, I will definitely try to use more of a variety. An aspect that I think went over great was that he definitely understood the concept and definitely got the fact that you can skip count by more than just fives or tens. You could also skip count by 100ths. And he was also able to understand that you can skip count with numbers that do not end in a five or a zero, like 5, 10, 15, or 10, 20, 30. I think that that is super common for students at this age. And a reason I chose this standard was because I think this is super important for students to get the hang of at an early age. And it's if they get the hang of it, it will definitely help them down the line in future math classes. And if they struggle with it, they definitely need practice, because it won't go away for them and it's only going to make their lives easier. So overall, I thought that both of the CBAs that I administered were good, but not great. And I definitely have specific things that I can improve in the future for both the written and the math aspect of it. Um, and I think that Dallas, the camper that took it, did a great job on both of them. And he was able to give me some great feedback that I can use in the future.